Did you know lacrosse was the fastest sport on two legs, or the game is growing rapidly by the day? Today I'm here to tell you a little about how the fundamentals of the sport, how the sport is played, and where the sport came from. So, it's springtime. Springtime is the perfect weather for any sport, especially lacrosse. You got low 80s to 60s. It's great weather. So, the object of the game is to score more points than your opponent. And that sounds a lot easier than what it actually is. So, in order to explain that to you, there is four different positions, main positions. So you got the attackman, you got the midfielders, you got the defenseman, and you got the goalie. So they all have different jobs, so to say. And for the attackman, their objective is to score the ball. So they're going to be feeders, which means they're going to feed the ball to their friends, their teammates, midfielders, other attackmen, and they're going to score the goal. They're going to score most of the goals. For the midfielders, they're either going to be cutting, which means they're going to be running down the field at a certain angle. They're going to be, doing this, that, and the other, and they're kind of the middle point. So that means they can play offense and defense, whereas attackmen can only play offense. So they can't cross the midfield line, or that's a flag. And for the defensive side of midfield, you're going to be guarding another midfielder or another midi, and in some cases you might be guarding an attackman. But for the most part, the defensemen are going to be guarding the attackman because they have the 6 foot poles, so they're they're easier to kind of cut off the angles of an attackman. And then for the goalie's objective is to not let the ball go through the line at the bottom to get into the net. So in order to do all that, you're going to need to know a little bit about the sport prior to actually executing anything. So I found a really helpful website. It's called realbuzzfeed.com, and basically it explains to you what you need to play the sport, some tips and tricks, and some gear, terminology, all of that fun stuff. So to start out with the basics, you're going to need a helmet, you're going to need some chest protector, you're going to need some cleats, you're going to need some gloves, and you're going to need a stick, most importantly, and a mouth guard. So basically, the terminology for all of that, all of it is not needed to know, but it's helpful in some cases because, in every sport you got your different terms. I know for baseball, it's really important to know. For football, it's also really important to know. So for some basic terminology, I said cutting earlier, so it's when a player is making a fast movement to get away from the other player in order to do something. You're also going to have feeding, so that's where one person has the ball and another person is cutting in a certain way so they can get the ball. You're going to have goal line, which means you're going to get closest to the goalie without stepping inside of the crease. And then you have goal line extended, which is kind of extended out from the goal line. So you have different formations as well. So you have the triangle, so you got one person up top and you got 2 people on the bottom. Or you can have one person in the middle and 2 people at the top. You have your 5 on a die, so you have 2 people up top, 2 people on the bottom. You have one in the middle. That's on man down. And then for man up, you can have, 3 and 3. You can have a 1-2-1. So many possibilities with the sport. And then the sport originated from the Native Americans. They started playing it. They called it stickball to start out with, and it went through many other names before the original name, or not the original, but before the name actually became lacrosse. So you have the creator's game, which is popularly known by everybody. And what basically started was you had a tribe playing another tribe, and they could have anywhere from 100 to 2,000 people on the field at one time. And the field was either between 500 yards and 2,000 yards. And they would get together. They would set a score. So if the score was 10, the first team to reach 10 would win the game. They'd play from sun up to sundown. Sometimes they'd go from sun up to sundown on several different days. And they would just keep playing until they could, deem a winner. And they called it stick and ball because, it had a stick and you had a ball. The game is very, very similar to basketball and hockey. A lot of people actually call it hockey, just on grass. So the similarities to basketball is the cutting, the plays, and for man down you have 5 people. For basketball you have 5 people, and then to hockey it's basically the same thing. Like you have the same amount of players out. Players can only cross a certain point, and each player has their own objective. So to show you guys a little bit about the stuff I talked about earlier about the gear and all that, here's mine. I'm a goalie. So I have my helmet, I have my stick, I have my pads, I have my gloves down there, and then I have my practice penny. Some of the most influential people on the sport would be Paul Rabel and Rob Pannell. Paul Rabel actually is the co-founder of the new Premier League Lacrosse. It started out with just Major League Lacrosse, and then he went out and got endorsed by a bunch of people and originally came up with another person for the Premier League Lacrosse. So now it's a whole different league with different people while still having Major League Lacrosse. So, he has just done so much for the game. There's plenty of articles. He's even got a podcast to where he's, breaking down the game somewhat. He's, giving his views on the game, the kids, the different things needed, and all of that. So in conclusion, I hope I taught you guys a little bit about the sport and how to play. Have a good one. Thank you.